Hey, this is Ray Dombrowski. Today I want to show you an all-new updated version of my vintage workwear logo templates. These templates have been reformatted and there are a ton of new features. I also want to show you how to use these templates with photos like this. But first, let's rewind. I want to tell you that all these come in Adobe Illustrator and Adobe Photoshop format. So when you download these templates, there are 25 different designs that look the same in Photoshop and Illustrator. The other big new feature is that the Photoshop and Illustrator templates are formatted with Adobe Typekit fonts. And if you're using Photoshop or Illustrator Creative Cloud, then most likely you have free access to the Typekit fonts as part of your Creative Cloud subscription. But if you're using an older version of Photoshop or Illustrator, I have a bonus list and links to 20 free fonts that you can use with these templates. Let me start out by showing you the Illustrator templates formatted for Typekit. So in here you'll see there's 25 different templates, each of these formatted with a different font from Adobe Typekit. So let's just double click one of these to open it. And if you don't already have your layers panel open, just go Window, Layers, and that's the key to editing these templates. When you open up the Layers panel, you'll see a bitmap texture layer, a vector texture layer, a layer for type, and a layer for the shape. And if you don't want any of this distress texture, you can just turn off the visibility of those top two layers. To edit the type, just highlight the type layer and get your type tool, and you can change the wording. So let's just change this to template. And you'll see the word template with this font size is a little too big. So what we need to do is highlight all of that, and let's just shrink down the font size. The other thing you can do is change the tracking, which is the letter spacing between characters. So if we wanted this a little closer, we could bring it down to 0, which is the default. We could space it out a little bit. That's 25. That's at 100, and you'll see at 100 it's a little too big. Let's shrink it down. That's at 75. I think that looks pretty good. The other way you can scale your type is manually. So I'm holding down Shift and Option right now, just so it proportionately scales. And we can move the type up. Now let's say we wanted to change some of these fonts and use different Adobe Typekit fonts. So what I can do is just highlight that type, and let's go over here to our character window, and what I'll do is click Add Fonts from Typekit. If you don't see this in your window, then you probably don't have a subscription to Typekit. But like I said, Typekit comes free with most Creative Cloud memberships. So let's just click on that, and it'll open a browser window, and you have access to a ton of different fonts here. And you can narrow them down between sans serif, serif, slab serif, all different classifications. You can also pick weight. So let's say you wanted a heavier weight font and something more condensed. And let's just go ahead and click this Adele condensed typeface, and we'll just click Use Fonts. And there's a whole selection of weights in this typeface. So let's just click all those, and then click Sync Selected Fonts. And let's just click Close. And when we go back to Illustrator, you'll notice these 14 fonts have been added. So now let's go back into that type and select Adele. And you'll see they're all activated. Let's try Condensed Bold, and I'll also change the Workwear and the USA. I think the Workwear type's a little big, so let's just select that, hold Shift Option, and just scale it down a bit. And the other thing with these Illustrator templates is it's very easy to change the color. So let's just select that hexagon shape, and let's just change this to like a dark blue. And you'll see the USA is still black. I want to make that blue, so we can just, with the eyedropper tool, just select that same blue. Now, if you want to save this for web, you can just go File, Save for Web, and save it for a JPEG. If you want it bigger, no problem, just do say 200%. Now you have a really big version of the logo. And these Illustrator templates are completely vector, so there's no problem. You can scale these as big as you want. My favorite new version of these templates are the Photoshop templates. And they look the same, but they work a little different. So let me show you how those work. So we'll go into our Photoshop CC templates formatted for Typekit. So just double click on that folder. Let's pick another one out here. I'll double click on that. And you'll see it's asking for a font here called Bourbon Regular. That's also a Typekit font. So we want to activate that. Just click Resolve Fonts. And once you do that, the type in this file will be formatted correctly. So let's go in and mess around with this template a little bit and change it. So first let me show you how these Photoshop templates are set up. Everything is contained in one layer group. So if that layer group isn't expanded, just click on this little arrow to drop down all the layers. You'll see all the layers in here. The top two are texture, and then below that are the type layers, and then below that are the shape layers. And the very bottom layer is a background color. You can put any background color in here that you want. Just double click on this icon. Let's do kind of a light blue, and I'll click OK. And you'll see that the type and also the texture in these Photoshop templates automatically knocks back to background color. So you can even paste in a photo in the background, and that texture will knock back to the photo. And I'll show you how to do that in just a little bit. But let's go in and change some of the type so I'll show you how that works. Let's click on our syndicate type here, and we'll get the type tool and just type out logo. And I think that's a little small. We can increase that type either in our character window. You can just scale up the font size. The other thing you can do is, since this is live type, you can just scale it up. And we can also move the type around. And let's change the word supplies to templates. And just like the Illustrator templates, we can also change the tracking. I think the tracking on this type is a little bit wide for the word templates. And right now the tracking is at 200, so it's already spaced apart quite a bit. So let's just shrink that down to say 120. And I think the word templates fits in there quite nicely now. And one of the final things I want to show you how to do is change the color of this logo. So you'll notice in this layer group, under Effects, it says Color Overlay. All we need to do is double click on that and just change the color. Let's change it to white. And you'll notice it changes everything that was black, it changes it to the new color. The very last thing I want to show you is how to use these with photos. Let me drag this Photoshop document down a little bit. And here you can see I have a photo open. And this is actually another product I have called Vintage Aloha Backgrounds. If you need some backgrounds that are really interesting and tropical and vintage, kind of Hawaiian looking, this is a really good way to do that. I'll put a link to this in the description, but let's go back to that photo that I showed you before. Let me turn off the logo that's in there, and we're back in this Vintage Workwear logo templates file. And all we need to do is drag this whole group into the photo and just drop it in there. It's a little big, so we'll just go Command T to scale it down. I'm holding down Shift and Option to keep everything proportional. And I think that looks really good. Let's just click Return to apply that. And we're done. To find out more about the Vintage Workwear logo templates and also the Vintage Aloha backgrounds, have a look at the description on this page. Thanks for watching.